If you're like me, you're probably concerned about the climate crisis. And I can pretty much guarantee that you're doing something at your home to minimize your environmental impact, which I think is great. But I also believe that we are acting inefficiently. We're spending so much effort avoiding plastics in our shopping, taking shorter showers, driving less, and even changing the way we eat. And yet, unfortunately, all this effort comes down to the reduced environmental impact of just one person. And it made me wonder if it made any difference at all. When thinking about reducing your environmental impact, many people tend to reflect on their direct life at home, but few think beyond this. I personally felt frustrated because it made me feel like I was spending all my effort trying to change the direction of a huge body of water at the end of a river, rather than fundamentally altering its direction higher up the stream with arguably less effort. At that time, I was interning in one of the largest tech firms in the world. We had about 340,000 employees then, which is pretty much the same population as Iceland. And it made me wonder, if I diverted my energy or the energy I was spending on reducing my own individual environmental impact and brought it to my workplace, could I multiply its impact without any more effort? I'm going to take you through the journey of a green team that a group of colleagues and I started about a year ago. And my hope is that it will inspire you to look beyond the scope of the individual and leverage your position in the workplace to deliver real, meaningful change. Our green team started off quite organically. We were about 4 designers and 1 operations manager, having lunch in the design studio. We were like-minded people, all concerned about the environment and had passionate discussions about recent news and events. And one thing we realized is that we were all keen to look at opportunities at how we could maximize our impact in the workplace. So as we got together, we looked at the different environmental themes we could address. And for us, there were 3 main ones: waste and recycling, energy consumption and generation, and wildlife resilience and regrowth. And so considering all 3 themes, we concluded that waste and recycling would be our main area of focus, purely because the result would end up in a tangible and immediate impact without necessarily the need to go through time-consuming company approvals and infrastructure development. And so with our theme chosen, a colleague of mine and I started introducing composting in our design studio. It was quite a basic setup with a little bin and some biodegradable bags, and it was completely volunteer run. We had the agreement from the canteen, which allowed us to throw away our food waste in their bins, and so every week we would alternate as to who would bring the bags to the bins. We also added signage and advertised the new bins at our studio's show and tell presentation, and so this then developed into our first action as a green team. And there are a couple of key aspects to bear in mind. The first is to start small with a manageable project. Regularly evaluate the effectiveness of your project. For us, we looked every day at the contents in our composting bin as opposed to the general waste bin, to really use that as a metric of our success. And we also reached out to our leadership team to talk about our projects and its potential impact, to really gain their interest and support. And it's also a great opportunity at that point to ask whether or not there is an existing green team available that you could be part of, or if you could start your own. And so with our first initiative running, we didn't really feel like we understood well the state of waste and recycling in our offices, and felt that it needed more research. So we reached out to our stakeholders, all involved in waste, such as CBRE, RISO, and Veolia, to understand what was going wrong with the system. We also observed people's recycling habits to better understand the human intricacies of our problem. And one of the biggest things that we learned was that we generate a huge amount of recyclable material, and only a fraction of that actually gets recycled. And so we wanted to understand that a little bit more. We got into getting involved in the business model of Veolia and realized that they accept a wide range of recyclable material, which is great, but they have consequently very strict contamination requirements. And so we went out to identify what was contaminating all our recycling bins and realized that coffee cups were the biggest culprit in this. They were always thrown in the recycling bin, and it typically because of its paper feel. And so very few people actually knew about this contamination requirement. And so when people were throwing away their coffee cups to get recycled, The residue left on them spoils the rest of the bin, rendering the whole bin useless. And so this common behavior is called aspirational recycling. And it's a problem caused when people are unsure about whether something's recyclable or not, and they put it in the recycling bin anyways, because it feels like the right thing to do. And so this simple yet destructive behavior became one of our first challenges to address as a green team. And so we looked at the bins every single day to see and monitor the effects. And we also worked really hard to get the numbers on our problems, to understand the scale of what was going wrong and where we could improve. And so we realized that Veolia purchased a new fleet of trucks, which had the ability to measure the contents and the mass of the waste being collected. And so we had an agreement with them to really try and get access to this data more seamlessly. And so as our team expanded, the same colleague of mine, who is a design thinking advocate for the company in the UK, ran a design thinking workshop to kickstart the green team. And it was a great way to bring together a team from different departments across the organization and generate new ideas based on the research that we've outlined. And it was really effective at identifying and evaluating the different skill sets that we had available in our team that would be super valuable later on. And so the main outcome of this design thinking workshop was to initiate a Green Week event, to officially kick off the green team with an intense week of awareness and action against waste. In addition to that, we ran a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game at our site's monthly employee meeting, filled with facts about waste and recycling. We had plants as prizes and people were engaged and participating, which was great. We had found that the responses from the audience members really validated our research insights, and at the same time acting as a platform to educate other employees on better recycling practices. It was also a really nice opportunity to advertise our upcoming Green Week initiative that we had in scope. At the same time, the designers of our team started creating posters and content for the event. We ran an in-house marketing campaign to advertise this, and we also created a dedicated Slack channel for employees wanting to learn more about what they can do to recycle better. And we also began direct communication with Veolia, our site's waste service provider, because we realized that the initial research or data that we could obtain from their trucks could actually be measured more frequently during our Green Week event, which would be great at evaluating the success of our efforts. And so this is an example of some of the posters that we scattered across the site to advertise Earth Week. We had posters for each initiative, all branded under the Think Green tagline. We had posters against the recycling of coffee cups, encouraging employees to purchase a mug for life. We had initiatives which allowed employees to take crockery with them to their desks, and instead of using single-use polystyrene containers, we would allow them to deposit them in our trailers. And we also had great canteen staff who were ready to promote our initiatives. We also managed to get permission from the canteen to use our trolleys to place them all across the kitchens in our site, which was a really nice platform for advertising our Earth Week initiative. But also we added a makeshift composting bin to test out composting in our site, as well as the ability to place used crockery and cutlery for collection. And so all these posters were designed for longevity and relevance so that they would stay in use for as long as needed. We spent quite a long time on renewing the site's recycling posters. They were originally not very user-friendly, and they lacked consistency across the site. And so we worked in partnership with Veolia to develop a poster tailored to our site's most popular contaminants. And we then printed the initial versions, tested it within our studio, we got feedback and iterated on it so that it was ready for mass deployment during Green Week. We also had stickers on all disposable coffee cups for a day, sending a clear message that they're not recyclable. We ran an online campaign on Slack aimed at gamifying the whole experience. And a member of the green team would then go around each kitchen every day at the end of work to document the progress and engagement from each kitchen and identify any leaders in adopting our initiatives. And so despite Earth Week being our first major initiative with still a considerably smaller team, we had some impactful outcomes. We now have official adoption of composting across our whole site, and we have official oversight of our leadership, which gives us increased credibility and support as a green team. And now with our first major initiative completed, we're now looking at expanding the scope of our green team and getting involved in more projects. And so some of these projects ranged from rewilding of our own campus with wildflower meadows and beekeeping activities to support local insect wildlife, improving the cycle to work experience, installing electric charging points in car parks, providing subsidized fees for public transport for our employees, and developing our own internal ride-sharing platform. We're also introducing a disposable cup tax, something which was one of our biggest problems and hurdles to overcome. And so we're super excited to implement this as soon as possible and see the effects. We've launched an internal website which gives us advice, or gives everyone advice, on being green in the workplace and at home. And it also hosts general information about the green team, and also provides a forum for new ideas to be shared. We're partnering with the company's summer internship program to propose sustainably led briefs and assist the teams with our specialist connections and knowledge. And we're also now running lightning talks every quarter during our monthly employee meetings, which is a great way to communicate what we're all doing with regards to the initiatives that we're running on site, and to maintain transparency and interest between our colleagues and the green team. And it also holds us accountable for the work that we're doing and the impact that we're generating. And so now you've experienced the journey of our green team, and by no means it's perfect, but I'd like to leave you with a couple of tips so that you can start one yourself. The first one is to stay focused. Choose a theme and stick to it. Climate change is a complex issue, and attempting to solve it all will result in little impact. So strive to address one specific problem or theme really well, and you'll be much more effective that way. And this leads on to my next point. Start small, then build. We started our composting with a very small group in the studio, and we refined it to deal with the problem really well. And so doing something small well allows it to be expanded across a whole organization much more quickly and successfully. The next piece of advice is to find like-minded individuals. It might seem quite obvious, but it's vital to the progress of your green team, and it will help drive the motivation of your group. And you're able to then pull the different skill sets from different resources and different parts of the organization to really progress the scope of your initiatives. I'd then recommend starting your own Green Week yourself. It's a great way to kickstart your team, raise awareness, and gain credibility across the whole organization. It's also super important to strive to measure your impact. Have data drive the initiatives you choose to make, and it will help you identify your problems more effectively and evaluate the success of your initiatives. I'd also recommend that you keep your team agile. We have, at the moment, tactical teams now working on different initiatives and different projects across our green team. And this gives them a level of autonomy, which enables them to develop initiatives more rapidly and dynamically, and allows people to take ownership of their own initiatives, reducing the volunteering workload overall. And if your team is established in your organization, I'd recommend starting to look at expanding to the local community. Transfer your impact from the workplace to local homes and the surroundings, and your impacts will be far-reaching, and you'll start generating this waterfall effect. And so I'd like to leave you with a final thought. It's common to think that the only way to deal with this climate crisis is through this pyramid that we see in society, whereby the leaders on top are the ones who have to initiate the change. But because the climate crisis is so embedded in our lives, this mindset of hierarchy stagnates our ability to deal with the problem. We each need to play a role in combating the climate crisis and to use our positions, no matter how big or small, to leverage this. I came into my company as an intern and helped create a group which is now providing tangible impacts to addressing the problem. Therefore, I think we should all see ourselves as part of this grid. And if we all took this perspective and did what we could at some level in our home, community, or workplace, we might actually stand a chance in dealing with climate change. Thank you.